Today I'm gonna build a mid-range gaming system from about 2008 to 2009. I'm gonna play it a bit fast and loose with the time frame, so just bear that in mind. And then what I'm gonna do is infect it with Windows Vista to build the ultimate mid-range Windows Vista-era gaming PC. This whole project started when a viewer and Discord member called XPS0 reached out and offered to send some old graphics cards over. Now this was really exciting because this was one of the GPUs that he was sending over, and it's an NVIDIA 8600 GT. Although I did have some pretty serious problems with it, but that's besides the point. We'll get into that a bit later. I really love hardware from this era because that's when I started really getting into PC hardware. So let's get into the mid-range Vista era build and see what components I chose for this specific PC. Now this whole build started off with this little GPU over here, which is an 8600 GT. It's actually the first kind of mid-range DirectX 10 graphics card. The rest of the components are kind of themed around that. They don't quite match up with the time frame that well, but they're pretty close. Now the second component is the CPU over here, which is an Intel Core 2 Duo E6300. I am very excited about that CPU because it was actually the CPU in my first ever gaming build back in the day in 2007. What's really cool about that CPU is that it's a dual-core CPU that has a base frequency of 1.8 GHz, which is very low, but it overclocks like a complete demon. As far as the cooler goes, I'm using the infamous Thermaltake Spin Q. Now I've done a couple of videos on this cooler before, and well, it's the only CPU cooler I have that's actually compatible with the LGA 775 socket. The hard drive that I'm using is a 160 gig Western Digital Caviar drive. I actually also had a Caviar drive in my first build alongside my E6300. The motherboard I've actually used before as well. It's a Gigabyte GAEP43. It's a little bit newer than the rest of these components, but yeah, I mean, it's still close enough. People conceivably would have run Windows Vista on a system with this motherboard in it. And then we've got 4 gigs of DDR2 800 over there. Case-wise, I'm gonna use this fairly mysterious Antec case, which I bought from Free Geek for $10. I think that it's an Antec VSK2000 ATX case, but some of the features don't quite line up. I don't know, it doesn't have a product name anywhere, and it's a bit of a weird case, but it has a very similar feature set to a mid-range case from the era that we're looking at. Now, as far as the GPU goes, I have a couple of concerns about this little 8600 GT that XPS0 sent over. It seems like it may not be working properly. It only outputs a signal once every 3 or 4 boot cycles, so I'm gonna try my best to get this working. Although, if unfortunately this graphics card doesn't work, I do have a backup GPU, which is this, a 9600 GT, so its bigger brother. And this, according to the Hackery, does actually work. So they actually give us some Furmark results over there, which is which is very nice of them to do. So with that, let's get this system with that GPU first into that case over there, and we're gonna see what it looks like to be gaming in Vista era. Now let's have a look at the feature set of this Stone Age era Antec case and how it's different from newer ones. The first big difference, in my opinion, is the fact that the power supply is actually mounted in the top, which is a really terrible idea which people did for a long time for some reason. So basically what happens is you get cool, fresh air coming in from the front, and then it gets all nice and hot over the CPU and graphics card, and then it gets sucked into the power supply in the top, so that you use nice used air to cool the components in your PSU, which just seems like a great idea. Like, how difficult is it really to figure out that you just put ventilation in the top and turn the power supply around? Like, it's not rocket science. And it's done. Look at that. We've got a PC successfully infected with Windows Vista. It's exciting stuff. It's exciting stuff. But before we get into the user experience, which in short is really terrible, although I don't think it's due to Vista. I think I made a pretty big mistake with the component selection on this build, but again, we'll get into that a bit later. First, let me just talk you through what it's like to actually build in a case roughly from that period. I think, in short, it wasn't that bad. There's enough space for everything. You can kind of route the cables where you want them to go. There's no real cable management in this chassis because there's not like anywhere to really hide cables. You can stuff some of them behind the hard drive cages and things like that, but yeah, there's not much you can do about it. As far as the aesthetic goes, I think it really looks like a PC from that era. That Wish power supply really looks the part, you know, with those ketchup and mustard cables with the like really half-assed sleeving on it, you know. The power supply placement in this case is hilarious because you've just got like the CPU cooler pretty much entirely obscuring the air intake of the power supply, so it's just gonna be CPU heat going there. Yeah, we're gonna have a pretty toasty power supply, I can imagine. The case isn't in the best condition. It kind of seems like they dug it out of someone's inner ear because it's got that like ear-waxy grease feeling to it. It's pretty gross. But our cat, Neko, absolutely loves it. He's been pretty much on heat around this case the entire time it's been in the house. Now, it's not all about the looks of the system. It may look period correct, but what is it like to actually use Windows Vista on a mid-range system from that era? Now, as I alluded to earlier, it's pretty terrible. Now, I've been kidding a lot about Windows Vista being a disease in this video, but I actually don't think it's Windows Vista's fault. I think the big reason that this system is so slow and so unbearably frustrating to use is because of the hard drive in it. I think that 160 gig Western Digital Caviar drive is just, it's way too slow because everything takes ages on this system. Yeah, I don't have much patience for a system that's slow. But gaming-wise, maybe it's better, because if the actual usability is terrible because of the hard drive, maybe the gaming experience is a bit better. Now, the thing is, Windows Vista has really terrible support for games at the moment because in the beginning of 2019, Steam actually stopped supporting Windows Vista. So what that means is you have to use a bit of a workaround to get Steam running on the system. So I'll have a video linked in the description below which shows you how to go about it. And once you get it running, it kind of works. So you can download all of the games that work in Windows 10. So I tried a bunch of them and yeah, I didn't have great success because the games would like load for 15 minutes and then the PC would just crash, but I got some games running. Now, the first game that I tried was GTA San Andreas because I really wanted to play that game again, but yeah, there was twice where I actually got into the menu, but then it would crash when I tried to load a game, so that was a no-go. I then tried Half-Life 2, which usually runs on anything, and it did actually work. I could get Half-Life 2 running at 1080p at the highest settings, but I mean, Half-Life 2 can run on a potato. After I successfully got Half-Life 2 to run, I tried Fear 2 because that was a game from around that era, I guess, and that actually worked pretty well. At 1080p at the highest settings, we were getting reasonably playable results, although I don't think it's the best game, so I don't really know if you want to play it. After that, I decided to try and run Csgo, which also worked. At 1080p at low settings, we were getting about 30 to 40 frames per second. Now, I know that this graphics card isn't at all designed for 1080p gameplay, so that's kind of one of the reasons. So you could run Csgo on this mid-range Windows Vista era PC, especially if you run it at a lower resolution, like 720p. Now, finally, we need to see whether or not this system can run the ultimate PC melter from that era, which was Crysis. In short, yeah, it works. As you can see here, it's running. It's currently running at 1680 by 1050, so that's just under 1080p at medium settings, and you're getting about 40 FPS. That's not too bad. It's just borderline playable. I would drop the settings a little bit because it feels a bit sluggish and there's a decent amount of input lag. But the 9600 GT with the E6300 actually manages to run Crysis reasonably well. I didn't do a huge amount of overclocking on the components because this system was unbelievably unstable. Like, it crashed constantly, and every game took about 3 crashes before it would actually start running. I'm not entirely sure if it was due to Vista. I think, again, the hard drive was so slow that it would load for so long that the session would just time out. But yeah, I would have tested more games on it, but it is infuriating to use this PC. Like, these couple of games, just to get in them and get a run through, took an entire day pretty much to get done. So it's really irritating to use this system. In fact, I want to do a follow-up video where I take that hard drive and drop it into like a real badass kind of higher end current day system and see how much it cripples it, because I think it's going to be pretty bad. That hard drive is a little bit like the PC equivalent of polio. I think it can bring even the most powerful PC to its knees. Let me know in the comment section below if you'd like to see that. So yeah, not much happened with this system, but it works. We've got Vista on it. Vista is definitely not supported anymore. Everything everywhere tells you that you shouldn't be using this operating system, but it was an interesting experiment. Yeah. So with that, thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be streaming on Twitch later today, so follow me there, and all the other social medias, I'll have them all linked in the description below. And until the next video, bye-bye.